Welcome back to the Mom Files. I'm Aleea,
And I'm Hav.
and today we are going to be diving into why savoring every moment makes us want to scream, like when you hear it. Because let's be real, some moments are exhausting, they're messy, and anything but this like magical vibe that people always talk about. And so I know most of us are already trying to do our best already. And it's funny, I actually had said something like this by default, and I think it was in episode 4. And Hop pointed it out that both of us are people who aren't fans of hearing it. But it's
Yeah.
just so easy to default to it, especially when you just don't know what else to say. So we figured we'd kind of talk about it because we understand that people mean well. And there is some truth to it, but I'm sure we aren't the only ones who have a bit of an issue on this topic. So let's talk about it. Why is that so annoying? So
Yeah.
I guess to kind of start, I don't know, how do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. I think that just like jumping into my mind is I think there is truth to it, right?
Mhm.
Like you want to savor every moment. And sometimes I wonder if that's why it makes me like so angry when people say because like obviously I want to savor the moment, but like you said at the start, sometimes things are just really messy and they're chaotic, and newborns and infants, toddlers, even our emotions, like a lot of it is just difficult and hard to process in the moment. And it's really hard. And there's a lot of guilt that comes with being in that moment and being like, well, I should savor every moment, but like I'm so tired or I need a break. And I think a lot of what we're trying to combat in our podcast is that we can have two emotions at once. I
Mhm.
can want to savor something and I can also want it to end. You know what I'm saying? Like we can want the teething and the crying to end and not be able to savor every single little moment. But it's hard for us as a society to be like, okay, we can be upset and like also care at the same time.
Yes, 100%. And I was gonna like kind of talk about this later, but I actually am glad you brought it up because I think a big part of it is that negative feelings make people uncomfortable. I know, and that includes me. Like, like
Mhm.
with death or when someone's like sad, it's like a lot of people just don't know how to respond to uncomfortable like emotions. And
Yeah.
so I think we tend to kind of try and relate or bring something positive to help, but we all
Mhm.
know that it doesn't always help. And then, like I said, that's why I put myself in that category because sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't know what to say, so I'll try and make you feel better. But
Right.
that's not exactly, sometimes we don't want that. Like, I know for me, sometimes I'm like, "Let me feel like shit." Like, it's okay.
Right. Well, and I'm working a lot on big emotions.
Mhm,
Always will be. Always am. But I think that's one thing like I'm trying right now with is with toddlers and with Azzy, like acknowledging her feelings and
mhm.
them being valid. And I think, like we all know, a lot of us adults don't know how to emotionally regulate, and it's really difficult. And I think there is a little part to it where we're just, when somebody says, oh, just like say, it's going to blow by so fast, just savor it. Even though it's rough, just savor it. And you're like, okay, but we're not acknowledging my
Mm,
feelings at all. Like, there is no sense of being like, okay, just savor it. That makes me feel like it's okay for me to be upset. It just makes me feel worse because of course, I want to savor it. I'm
right.
tired, boss.
Yes, and I do think that's a big part of, like, that toxic positivity because it does
Mhm.
minimize the hard parts and the silent struggles, and
Mhm.
like I said, that's why I say I struggle with it when I'm talking to other people because
Absolutely.
it's just so easy to be, I like being optimistic and positive, but I also like room to rant, and I think sometimes we forget to leave that room to rant. Like, it's
Yeah.
okay to feel like both, like you said, like, you can
Yeah.
have, we can be angry and still be like, "Oh, I enjoy it."
Right. Well, too, I think, and sometimes I might even go a little further on the opposite spectrum of when people are like, "Oh, like this is being difficult," and I'll literally just be like, "Yeah, dude, it sucks."
Mhm.
Does that like validate people's feelings? Hopefully a little bit, but like you said, I think when it gets uncomfortable, also like when somebody's talking to you about their kids, you also don't ever wanna make them feel like you don't ever wanna make them feel like you don't care about their kid. So being okay with all of the negative too, I feel like sometimes is like, okay. It's like when somebody talks bad about their sibling. It doesn't make it okay for you to talk bad about their sibling, right? Like that's my brother. I can talk crap, but you can't. So sometimes I think about that too, because I'm like, okay, well, we do also want to like encourage the positivity, like you said. Like I want to be positive, but I think you make a good point of like there is a part where it becomes toxic positivity because we're not acknowledging people's
Mhm,
feelings and like we can. I mean, and it's also okay to just not like a phase.
mhm.
Like I mentioned, the teething phase that is hard. You're not getting any sleep. Your kid is crying 24/7. And then they smile for 2 minutes a day. And I'm supposed to be like so ecstatic over that
Right.
2 minutes of smiles. Like, of course I'm happy for it, but the rest of all the negative emotions are sometimes hard to battle.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point. I was thinking when you said that, I also never want people to think I'm judging their parenting and thinking like, "Oh, you're a bad parent." And so it's like you wanna
Mhm.
word things so you're not like, "Oh, I think your kid
Right.
sucks," or "I think you're making a bad choice." Like, you're trying to support them in a way, but also be like, "Hey,"
Right.
there's just a lot of pressure, and I think there's a lot of pressure behind the phrase as well, because it can be
Mhm.
so easy and also feel like when you are hearing it, like, you're like, "Oh, I'm doing something wrong." Like, as the
Right.
mom that's hearing it too. Yeah, I think there's just a lot of pressure behind it.
Totally. I think the mom guilt, at least for
Mhm.
me, plays a big part because I know for me, like when people say that to me, I'm like, okay, now you think I'm like a horrible mom because I'm complaining about it.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because when you said not every phase, I honestly wasn't a huge fan of the newborn phase. And
Mhm.
sometimes you feel bad that you didn't love that phase. And it's like what you talked about. I did enjoy him being small and not moving and like in quotes snuggle, those things. But I'm like, it was also really long for me. We had a lot of crying and a lot of things that just felt difficult, and so it was hard because it's like I did wanna enjoy it, and I was trying, but you're like you said, it was also I was feeling, "Let's kinda get through this phase," because
Right.
I'm feeling really overstimulated and tired and overwhelmed, and so, yeah, I think it
Right.
is true. There's a lot of duality in it.
Yeah. And well, and I remember too, like, being up in the middle of the night and like crying because I'm so tired. And then 5 minutes later being like, oh my God, but look at her little toes. Like I get to stare at her little toes. And so there is like, I think we forget that we are enjoying the moments and savoring the moments while they're hard. But I know for me, like in those hard moments before, I'm like, oh my gosh, her baby toes and they fit in my hand and they're so sweet and all these things. Before that, I'm feeling guilty because I'm crying because I'm tired and I just want my baby to go to sleep. And then in the back of my head, I'm like, but you're just supposed, these moments fly by. You're supposed to savor every second. Um, it just, yeah.
And I think you actually make a really good point is how do we know we're not savoring the moment? Like we keep telling ourselves, but
Mhm.
I'm like, maybe you are. And like you said, just because you are having a little bit of guilt and stuff doesn't mean you aren't loving it. Because I know I did
Right.
love being in those moments, even though I wasn't loving it. And so I think that's a good
Right.
point that like who we don't have there's no scale, like, there's no formula of what it means to be fully in the moment or, like, that you weren't enjoying it, so, yeah, I think that's a good point that maybe you are, and
Yeah.
but you're still allowed to feel shitty sometimes or, like, have those feelings, but maybe
Yeah. I think that's a really good point that I didn't even think about, but that is true. I mean, like I said, I'm crying because I'm tired, but then I'm also like, oh, little
Mhm.
baby toes. But when you're like upset, then
It
is it
feels like
society telling you that you're not
right.
like savoring it? What are we supposed to savor? Maybe like living in the negative too sometimes. I think I'm starting to get to the point where I think I'm like, can I just like be honest about the negative parts? It doesn't mean that I
Mhm.
think that all of it is horrible,
Yes.
but like acknowledging that it was difficult or it is difficult or it will be difficult does not mean that I expect to hate it. It just means that like I'm recognizing that this is going to be a challenge for me and there are things that I'm going to have to face that are gonna be hard, and when we're in that newborn phase, like, it really is hard. It's
Mhm.
difficult, and savoring like, learning how to, like, get okay with being going through the difficultness and savoring it at the same time, yes, there's duality in emotions, but it's also hard sometimes to, like, do all of them at once.
Yeah, and you're so right. I think it's especially hard when you feel like you're in survival mode. You know, it's like,
Mhm.
you just don't know if you're savoring it because you just feel so overwhelmed and stuff. But yeah, I think it's a good point. And I think as you were saying that, I felt like I'm starting to right now starting to process like I do have complexities and feelings, and all of those feelings do wrap up those moments. You
Yeah,
know, and I'm like, so, I am enjoying like even right now, like Dash is in the middle of getting his molars. It's been a little rough, but I'm still loving the phase that we're in right now. I love this
right.
age. He's so fun. Like it's just but I'm, like, still struggling a little bit because I'm still getting a little less sleep, it's been a little cranky modes, things like that, but I'm like
Yeah,
and so I just feel like I'm like, but to me, that is kind of life where all of those feelings wrapped up, that complexity does make that kinda is making our motherhood and, like, our journey, like, that's
yeah.
just part of it, yeah.
Well, and too, if everything was so easy that you were able to savor every little moment, it's like,
Eh
do we recognize how good those moments are
right.
without any of, like, the not so perfect moments? I know for me right now, this phase with Azzy is like I'm loving learning
Mhm.
her little personality, and she has, like, so much spunk, and the things that comes out of her mouth, like, is just so funny. And I am totally saving that, but, like, 5 minutes later, it comes along with a tantrum and an attitude and, like, all these things that I'm like, I just wanna figure out, but I don't necessarily clump those together, like, thinking about the newborn phase, I remember loving the naps, the contact
Mhm.
naps and everything. What it took to get to that contact nap, in my head, they're, like, separate, but I
Mhm.
hated is a strong word. It was really difficult for me having to walk a mile of circles in my house to get my child to fall asleep because she wouldn't fall asleep laying down. But once she was asleep, oh, the sweetness.
Right, and so I'm like, I do think we are enjoying it, but it can just be hard when there's so much pressure and feeling like, "Oh, you have to love every single second, blah, blah, blah," and it's like, "Okay, like, maybe you are, but you're also we can still complain and be like,
Yeah.
'What's happening right now?'"
Right. Well, I think that goes into, like, what we've talked about in episodes before of, like, can I just complain without having to put in this huge, like I feel like I'm writing a book and I need to put in the first pages, "Just so you know, I love my child and I love her at this stage, but just let me vent for a second." Like,
Yes, we don't
just
wanna
let
feel
me
like we're
vent.
constantly justifying. Like, you can just
Mhm.
have those feelings.
It's a lot of words, okay? That's a big word for Elmo. I just need a break.
It is so true, and I think it is because of the way our culture is right now, but it is so true where we're like, "I'm so sorry, I just" you, like, apologize before you've even said anything because you're like, "I don't want this to be construed as, like, I hate being a parent or whatever." But I think, with that, I'm curious, like, I'm sure there's others out there that are like me, where we just default to say, "Savor every moment," or you just don't know what else to say, and so I think let's kind of tackle or like, what are there let's come up with some things that maybe would be better to kind of
Yeah,
help, especially if, like I said, if you're like me and it's just easy to default. I know, like, one thing we've talked about, just allowing someone to vent and be like, "Hell yeah, I agree." Like, that
yeah,
sucks. Like, you're sorry, but it sucks. That's definitely one thing. And then the other one for me is just reminding them it is okay if the stage feels hard because sometimes there is just moments that are difficult and like just let them feel it, honestly.
yeah. I think 100% that's it, is just almost just not saying anything.
Mhm.
Like, just being there in the moment, recognizing that I see this is hard for you.
Mhm.
Again, it's kinda like how we're trying to learn how to talk to toddlers. That is really difficult. That's really hard to be going through. You're doing a great job raising your child to the best of your ability, or not even to you're doing a really great job. I know this is hard. I think just acknowledge it. Let me be mad for a second.
And, to add on to that, make sure because I'm like, sometimes people won't vent. Also, if you do have friends and maybe you feel like they're having, you can let them know, like, hey, I'm here if you want to vent. Like, you can say,
Mhm.
because I think some people also might be scared or nervous to express themselves. So that's also a good thing is to be like, hey,
Yeah.
you can, and that
The
doesn't, yeah.
judgment free.
Yeah, I like
Like,
judgment free. Yeah.
yeah, because of course, there's I don't wanna be judged, but
But
I
if
don't
you
want my
say
friends.
it, mean it. Don't go judging.
Yeah, don't go judging, don't go turn around and go, "I can't you can't believe what Aleea said about how she's feeling about Dash right now." Aleea said that she needs a break. Can you believe it? She chose
Yeah.
to have a child and she needs a goddamn break.
So I'm like, be encouraging, but
Yeah.
mean that. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and your it's like your family. You know your relationships with your friends, you know what they need to hear.
Right.
Me and Aleea are very candid with each other,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I literally with you, "Sorry, girl, you're being tortured. I love you
Mhm.
so much." But that might look a little different with a different friend.
Right. Like, you might need a friend that needs that toxic positivity.
You really, truly and sometimes I will say that does help you get out of it. Like, I know there'll be times where I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, like, what is going on with our child?" And then sometimes Tony and I will like step to other parents and we're like, hey, like and they'll literally be like, okay, yep, I hear you. Just a reminder, she is 3. She's also like very well behaved for 3. Like you have to remember there's other 3-year olds who are doing XYZ, which not to compare my child to other children, but sometimes that's really helpful just to put everything into perspective for me and be like, okay, we are doing something right. I think a lot of this all goes back to guilt and parental guilt, mom guilt, and just like feeling like you're not doing the best for your kid. So not a negative like you're why are you complaining? You're doing a good job. She's a good kid. But like, yeah, that's hard. Just a reminder, like you are doing a really great job.
Yeah, and I actually think that, like you said, things that also helped me that you said is like, yes, this sucks right now, but that doesn't mean it can get better down the road. Like, you still gave some light, so it's like, okay, I'm feeling like validated in my feelings, but I also am looking hopeful because maybe this
Yeah.
won't go on forever. Like, it's kind of like
Yeah.
a multiple, like, yeah, that really does suck, but there is some light,
Yeah.
even
Well,
if
and
I
I feel
haven't
like
found it yet.
that can be hard too though, because I know for
Mhm.
me, like, oh, it's gonna get better. I'm hoping it was a little different for you because I know that I tried to be like, okay, like it did suck for a long time, but now she's 2.5 and she's able to understand this more. This is what's working for me. So like maybe you can try that. But I know for a lot of times people were just like, without it'll get better. When? How? What's gonna get better? The sleep's gonna get better? Me just not caring is gonna get better? Like, what's gonna get better? Because it's
Right.
different for every kid. There's 4-year-olds who are still contact sleeping. I mean, my 3.5-year-old, she was sleeping by herself and sleeping through the night for like a year. And now she's split nights every night and just wants like constant contact. And is that age appropriate? Absolutely. Is it difficult for me because I got used to having some like peace at night? Yeah, it is. But telling me that it's gonna get better, thank you. I now know that it will. I now know that it will, but I feel like whenever or at least I try whenever I'm like, "It will get better," I'm like, "Okay, like, yes, this is really hard." Eventually, you'll notice the signs for when you can start changing things. Now, I try to never I hope I never pressure you to feel
No,
like
no,
you need
no.
to do anything.
No, but yes, I think the examples help. Not just like, "Hey, that sucks. It will get better," but it's like, "Hey, this sucks. You know, this is what we're going through. Hopefully this gives you some future
Yeah,
hope." But like we've said, I mean, our kids are so different and like all kids are so different that that doesn't mean Azzy's timeline's going to be Dash's timeline, but it
right.
just gives you like a, "Hey, maybe this won't go on forever."
Right. I know. I mean, with the molars, for like a month, I've been like, it's molars. It's going to be his molars. You're going to have like 2, 3 more months of crappy sleep. And then
Right.
hopefully you'll see the light of, whatever.
Because it does. I mean, I feel like it's even been longer than a month. I feel like we've been like, this is like,
No,
it
it's
feels
been
like
months.
I feel like since we were like, well, yeah. But it
It's
is
been
hard
months.
because there's no timeline and you're just like,
I think it's been a month since you've seen proof that it's his molars. And it's all a guessing game because
yeah,
I was like, hopeful that it was his molars.
right.
There's so many things that it could be. But I think just to bring it back into the topic, I think that's the difference between toxic
Mhm,
positivity and realistic positivity. I'm
mhm.
not telling you like you're delusional and like you should get over the negative parts of it and having a child is this beautiful thing that you should just like be so grateful for. Yes, it is, but we can be positive without being overly just like ignorant to somebody's feelings.
I like the realistic positivity. If it's not a term, we're coining it right now. Like, did it?
You did it.
But I think that yes, 100%. I think you couldn't have said it better, and I think that kind of takes us in to just kinda wrapping up this topic, which, it's a reminder, like, you're human. If you're feeling this way, and if you're going through this right now, and you're kinda wondering, how you're going to get through it,
Mhm.
1, sit in it, just have your feelings. You're allowed to feel crappy and stuff, but it's also a good time to celebrate, the little moments. Like Hav and I were saying, maybe you are enjoying the contact naps or
Mhm.
hugs or a laugh or maybe car rides are helpful. Whatever it is, it's like you don't have to force joy 24/7, but it's like you can enjoy some moments while still being realistic and understanding that maybe not all. Just give yourself grace, It's okay to not savor everything. Hav, would you
Absolutely.
like to add anything?
Yeah, give yourself grace and adjust where you can. I think I'm gonna say this in every single episode. You know your family, you know it's best. Those contact naps for me, that's when decided I'm co-sleeping. I did
Mhm.
4 months of trying and co-sleeping. It was still difficult, but, so just take everything in stride. Do try to savor what you can, be positive about what you can. It does really help to, like, kind of get out of your head as much as possible, but it's okay to not feel okay.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. And so with that, the next episode, we are going to be covering when working from home feels like you're feeling it both. We are both work from home moms, and we get how hard it can be to balance both areas and not feel like you're drowning on both sides. So stick with us as we discuss that next week. Bye.
Bye.